Hi there. I'm Ruchi Chopra. I'm a lead program manager in the Microsoft Information Protection team. Let's talk about how Microsoft helps you secure your sensitive information no matter where it lives. Goes without saying that all organizations are dealing with sensitive data and protecting that data is their number one concern. But that's easier said than done. The problem is it's so hard to identify your sensitive information. It's so hard to locate it. It's so hard to know what users are doing with it, how they're sharing it, how it's moving within or outside your organization. No wonder then that more than 80% of corporate data is dark. And that's why 88% of organizations surveyed said they just don't have the confidence to protect that data. And this problem is now compounded by this remote work situation we have where users are using non-corporate managed devices to create sensitive data, to share that sensitive data, and it's all happening from non-corporate locations, making protection even harder. But fear not, there is a solution. So we have a very unique solution to information protection, and I'll share a few things here with you on what makes our solution unique. Firstly, it's integrated into the apps that your users are already using, which means that there's no additional plugin to be deployed, to be kept up to date, to be managed. None of that. Secondly, no matter what location you're looking to protect, whether it is SharePoint or Teams or Office or any other location that your sensitive data lives in, your policy creation happens in a single place. It happens in our Microsoft 365 Compliance Center, where you create your policy, you deploy it across workloads, and then you monitor it. You see how it's doing all in one place. So it's all a unified experience. Thirdly, the bedrock of our solution is a really rich, flexible, and intelligent classification platform. What this is a number of ways, different techniques that we use to identify sensitive information, whether that's regular expressions, whether it's keyword dictionaries, or even more advanced techniques like machine learning. We at Microsoft have invested in a number of built-in capabilities that you can just use right out the gate, but then we also allow you to customize them and really make them your own. Next, we understand that for any protection solution to be successful, it needs to not get in the way of user productivity. And so we offer you the flexibility, the knobs to determine under what scenarios you want to enforce policy a little more stringently, and in what scenarios you want to allow your users to, for instance, override the policy because they've applied their judgment and have decided that the override makes the best sense for the business. And then lastly, we also realize the importance of a comprehensive solution when it comes to protecting your data. And so our solution is extensible to non-Microsoft apps and services as well. And we do that through our CASB. So let's take a closer look. When I say it's comprehensive, here's really what I mean. Firstly, your on-premises data. Secondly, Office applications across platforms. So whether it is Windows or Mac, whether it is rich client or web client, whether it is mobile or desktop, we've got it all covered. Then there's SharePoint sites, Teams, Office 365 groups, email, and like I said, non-Microsoft apps and services as well through our CASB, Microsoft Cloud App Security. So we've got 3 pillars that our solution is organized around. Let's talk for a moment about all of them, and then I will show you through a walkthrough how all of this comes together. So the first one is know your data, really addressing that dark data problem that I was talking about in the beginning, where without the admin having to configure anything, we crawl your digital estate and give you optics into what kind of sensitive data you have, where it lives, and then what kind of activity is happening with it? How is it being shared? How is it moving? Second, now you know what sensitive data lives. The next thing to do is to protect it. And so we offer the ability to protect your data, to first classify it, and then according to the classification, label it. And then an outcome of your label is you could choose to watermark the data, which builds awareness that, hey, for the user, that, hey, I'm dealing with something sensitive. Second, you could encrypt it, which again offers a lot more protection, prevents unauthorized access. And then the third pillar is preventing data loss, which is preventing the leakage of your crown jewels, of your sensitive data, out, inadvertent or otherwise, outside your organization. And like I said, let's do a walkthrough to see how all of these pillars come together. So through this walkthrough, we're going to start with the know your data piece, where we are addressing the dark data problem. So here you're looking at the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center. Within that, on the left, you'll see data classification is the tab that has been selected. And within that, sensitive information types. So this is where the admin is looking at all the different detectors or classifiers of sensitive information. And the one that's selected here, that's highlighted, is Project Obsidian. So what the admin has done is create a custom. Remember, I said that we allow you to customize and really make these detectors your own. You've created a custom classifier that could be a combination of regular expressions, keyword dictionaries, machine learning, and a number of other capabilities we have to find all the content in their organization that is relevant to a particular highly sensitive project called Project Obsidian. So now that they have these rules established, this classifier established, we're going to see next how out of the box optics are there into the files that match that set of that classifier. So now they're going to click into the Content Explorer tab right here, and they're going to see Project Obsidian is that classifier they had created, and all the data in their organization that matched that classifier. And now they're going to click into SharePoint, and here you see all the files that match that content. And not just that, if you have the right permissions, you can even peep into those files. So we give you right there a preview of that sensitive content. So you know whether, you can also apply your judgment on whether that, was a false positive or actually matched that policy. So now you've got an understanding of the data that matched Project Obsidian. The next natural thing to do, obviously, is to try to protect it. And now we're going to see how the admin can protect it, again, right from within the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center. So on to our next pillar, which is protect your data. So now I'm in the information protection tab in the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center. And the first thing I'm going to do is define a new label. Because I want to label all those files that I had just seen that matched Project Obsidian, I want to label them highly confidential. So the first thing, of course, is I'm going to give my label a name. This is the name that the users are going to see when they're looking at a file that's been given that label, and a tooltip that appears as a descriptor for users to understand what's going on. And then there's a number of things that I can define as I was mentioning, protective actions that go with that label. I could choose encryption, I could choose watermarking, and so forth. And so I've defined my settings for this label. So now I have this label. The next thing I want to do is automatically apply that label to all the content that I had just seen that matches that Project Obsidian classifier. So now I'm going to create an auto classification policy. So now I'm going to say it's a custom policy because I want to give it that name, Project Obsidian policy. And I decide the locations where I want to apply it. And then I'm going to define the rule. And the rule is that the file should match the Project Obsidian classifier that I had created. Now that rule has been established, I will then say, okay, anything matching that rule, any file that matches that Project Obsidian classifier should be given that label of highly confidential that I just created. All right. And now I have the option to run this policy in simulation before I actually deploy it. So before I actually label and encrypt all those files, let me just see, it's a what if sort of analysis. Let me see what files would get impacted if I actually deployed this policy. That's a really powerful tool that we offer. So now we're going to review and finish. And here's our simulation results. So in the simulation results, it tells me how much time it takes to do the labeling and a whole lot of other information, but it also gives me insight into all the files that matched my policy. And again, I can get a preview of those files as well. So now when I'm comfortable, I roll out that policy. And now the policy is rolled out. You will see it in action. A number of locations had been selected for that policy, including SharePoint. And so you see in SharePoint, a particular file that matched Project Obsidian has been labeled highly confidential. Similarly, in Office, a user who has opened up that file will also get this tooltip that says that it has been labeled highly confidential. So that was protecting the data by labeling it. And then the next thing that the third pillar of our solution was prevent data loss. So let's take a look at all of our capabilities there. But before we go there, I have a really exciting announcement as well related to preventing data loss. We recently announced the public preview of our Endpoint DLP solution. So this is a solution that helps you identify and protect sensitive data within your endpoints. And there's a number of really unique things to it. Firstly, native protection. As with all of our other information protection capabilities, it is built in. It's built into your OS, Windows. It's built into the apps that your users are already using, Office. It's built into the browser, Edge. Again, no plugins to manage. Secondly, it's so easy to get started. There is no on-prem infrastructure required, no agent, just a little bit of lightweight configuration in the cloud, and you're set. And before you even create your first policy, those optics will start to flow in. The know your data optics. So you'll start to see the activity around sensitive data on your endpoints. And then the third thing is that it's integrated, as I had mentioned, leveraging the Microsoft Information Protection classification and labeling platform. But not just that, it's also integrated with Microsoft Threat Protection, with Insider Risk Management. What that enables is signal sharing between these solutions, which really makes for a richer context and smarter solutions. So back to the walkthrough, and now we're going to see the data loss prevention policy in action, again for Project Obsidian. So I'm going to choose for this walkthrough to choose Teams and Endpoint as the locations where this policy is going to be applied. And this is what it looks like. So I've deployed the Project Obsidian policy, and now we're in Teams. There's a conversation going on amongst end users in the organization, and somebody mentions something that matched that policy. That message got flagged. And not just that, but there is information for the end user around what they can do next, why it was flagged and what they can do. So the admin had configured an override here, which is why the end user has the option to override. Going back to the productivity and security balance that we offer, if the admin chooses, they can allow for overrides. And now we'll switch to the device experience. And here's the policy authoring for devices, very specific for the endpoints. There's a whole rich set of controls. You can choose to audit, you can choose to block, and offer overrides for users, and across a variety of actions. And so we're going to see some of these in action. Copy to clipboard is there, and the admin has configured a block with override. Now, this is the policy in action on Windows, where the user is attempting to copy content from a file that has been classified as Project Obsidian, and Windows is popping up this notification that says that you cannot do that by per admin policy, but because an override was configured, the user can provide a justification to override. Not just that, now going back to monitoring that policy in Know Your Data. So now in Activity Explorer, what you're going to see is that we have all of those activities that happen that match that policy show up right here. And so that file copied to clipboard or copied to USB will just appear here in the Activity Explorer. And then the user and the admin can get more details around the files that were impacted. So to summarize, just a few thoughts that I want to leave you with. Data is exploding. Along with that, sensitive data is exploding across locations, whether it's on premises and cloud apps or on users' devices. And protecting that data is super critical, and it involves identifying. It starts with identifying that data, then labeling it, and then lastly, applying policies to protect it. And Microsoft Information Protection is a truly unique solution that helps you do that because it's unified, it's intelligent, it's consistent, it's extensible. So it's really comprehensive. And it offers all of this to your admins as well as your end users in a really consistent and integrated user experience. So that pretty much wraps up the information that I wanted to share with you today. Thank you.